Israeli airstrikes in Gaza have killed at least 90 Palestinians, 24 of them children, in the most significant violation of the ceasefire since it began more than 2 weeks ago. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered the attacks after an Israeli soldier was killed in Rafah. Hamas has denied involvement. U.S. President Donald Trump, who helped broker the truce, has defended the strikes, but he insists the ceasefire will hold. From the north to the south of Gaza, Israeli strikes hit homes, tents housing displaced Palestinians, and refugee camps. Rescue efforts had been underway to retrieve the bodies buried under the rubble. Okay, let's now speak to Geist Pinfold, who's a lecturer in international security at King's College London. Welcome back to Al Jazeera. Thanks for your time. From a security standpoint, how fragile is the ceasefire? Are we already seeing its collapse in real time?
Well, the ceasefire was fragile from day one. We know that both Israel and Hamas basically signed up, but under significant military or diplomatic duress. In both cases, their affirmation and signing up to the ceasefire was a yes, but, and both sides are hoping that the other will make the job easy for them and break the ceasefire and be blamed by the international community. So what we're seeing is this kind of game of chicken where both sides are trying to test each other's limits, test each other's boundaries, whilst also looking for the smoking gun that gives them the excuse to violate the ceasefire. That's what we've seen Israel doing in the last 24 hours. The fact that a soldier was killed in Rafah, we still don't know by whom. We still don't know whether this was ordered by Hamas or whether this was somebody else or a Hamas cell operating independently. But Israel has seized that opportunity to violate the ceasefire because this is what they wanted all along, though the Americans will be trying to rein them in, which is exactly what we've seen. The US saying that we expect Israel to respond, but in private they'll be telling the Israelis, we also expect you to stop.
But the thing is, when Washington says that the ceasefire is holding, despite almost 100 Palestinians in Gaza being killed, what does this reveal about how the U.S. sees this and how the U.S. sees stability?
The US wants quiet. As long as both parties sign up to the ceasefire and stay signed up for the ceasefire, then Trump can claim a victory and he can focus elsewhere. What we're seeing is Israel try and impose its own facts on the ground here. Israel has still not withdrawn from Gaza. It controls over 50% of the Gaza Strip directly and far more indirectly. What Israel has always been seeking to do is to basically transplant its model from Lebanon, where there is supposedly a ceasefire, but Israel has the right or the ability at least to act unilaterally against Hezbollah targets, striking regularly. It's still occupying parts of South Lebanon. So it's understandable why to many Palestinians in Gaza, this might not look like an actual ceasefire and definitely not a peace plan, an indefinite, prolonged occupation with no end in sight.
And looking ahead, what mechanisms, if any, could realistically enforce or monitor a ceasefire that, as you're saying, is breached almost daily? I mean, or is it just a matter of the U.S. telling the Israelis to stop?
That's exactly what we need right now. We need the US to say to the Israelis, they may be saying that in private, but also ideally in public, to say, stop, this cannot happen. This is where many of the regional powers with whom the US enjoys close relations, countries like Turkey, countries like the Gulf states, need to step in and say to the US, who will inevitably take their eye off the ball, they're a superpower, they focus elsewhere. Trump has a very, very short attention span. This is where regional actors, regional powers need to say to the US, hey, this thing is slipping away whilst you are looking elsewhere. You need to throw your weight behind this and you need to rein in Israel.
And, despite the ceasefire, Israel, of course, maintains tight control over the airspace, the waters, the borders. Hani, our reporter, was saying that there are drones that they're hearing regularly in the skies. The army, of course, retains positions. What is the end game for Israel when it comes to Gaza?
The end game for Israel, or Netanyahu's day after, if you like, is very similar to the day before. Israel would quite like to keep the status quo, things that the way things are at the moment, where Israel controls directly around 50% of the Gaza Strip, as you say, controls far more of it through having complete closure of the airspace, the borders, maritime access, for example. Hamas would exist in a rump state in around 50% of the Gaza Strip. Israel would control the other 50%. And basically that other 50% that Hamas controls or Israel doesn't directly control would be besieged, it would be blockaded, it would be deprived, and it would be starved. So this is exactly what Israel wants, for the status quo, which is supposed to be temporary, to become permanent. And as I say, that's very, very similar to the status quo we had on October the 6th, 2023. This is not a way to resolve the conflict. It's a way to perpetuate the conflict and a way to perpetuate grievances and to make further conflict inevitable.
Geist Pinfold, you're a lecturer in international security at King's College London, speaking to us from London this hour. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.